Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Global Game Jam 2020. I am simply Gabby Snyder, and today I am joined here by Ryan Kubik, who is a staff developer over working on TwilioQuest. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Getting ready for a little bit of snow up in my neck of the woods, as I'm sure some other people are out there. But what a better time to charge all your batteries and just get some good game jamming going.
A
So I gotta
perfect weather
ask,
for us to stay inside.
it really is. It really is. I gotta ask. So, are you planning on joining in the game jam at all this year yourself?
I'm really hoping to. It's going to depend what can happen in this last weekend here. I definitely haven't had time to squeeze in anything yet, though.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you became to be here today, here over on the Global Game Jam stream?
Yeah. So my name's Ryan. I've been doing game stuff for a while now, and actually, one of the first game jams I ever participated in was Global Game Jam with my uh, college's game developer club. And then after I moved out to Portland, the first social event I went to was a Global Game Jam kickoff in 2018, I think. And I did several in a row for a while, and it was always a highlight, a great way to kick off the year. And then from there, I've just kind of been going more into games, and I kind of work at an intersection of web and games, and that kind of led me to TwilioQuest specifically, which is what we're here to talk about today.
That's awesome. Do you have any fun memories from your Global Game Jams of the past?
Yeah. Global Game Jam is just great. I'm super looking forward to when we get to do in-person sites again, because some of the there's I don't know what it is, but there's just something really magical about getting everyone in just one space and taking that whole weekend to do something awesome. That was Global Game Jam is the first place where I really worked with like a larger team too, and kind of understood the there's something just really cool about working with an artist who's really good at art instead of making your own bad art, and something about magical working with talented like writers and music, and just all of that stuff is super cool. And I've Global Game Jam is the first place where I was ever able to experience that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just all around magical. I'm sure I could find a more specific example too, but
No pressure, no pressure. I just like to ask because one of the things I've noticed, doing these interviews is that everybody has a connection to Global Game Jam, like not just through the fact that you're here for Twilio Quest, like, but a personal connection from your college days. Like you said, you went to that social event. I did Global Game Jam back in like 2012 when I was in undergrad, which was kind of crazy.
mhm.
So it's really cool to see everybody just be so motivated to come back here and just keep participating and keep sort of sharing that magic with each other.
Yeah, it's great, and I look forward to continuing to do so. It's been really cool to kind of be in this opportunity now, where I get the chance to kind of help sponsor local events and the larger event, to kind of help more people continue to experience the magic.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a bit more about Twilio Quest? Because when I looked it up, admittedly, I wasn't really sure what to expect, and it quite honestly did not match my expectations at all. So I'm curious to hear like the sales pitch, if you will, for it.
Sure. After that, I'm curious to hear your expectations too. So the quick version that we always go to is Twilio Quest is a educational role playing game that teaches folks how to code. So that kind of glosses over a lot of the actual details. Currently, where we sit, we like to think that TwilioQuest is like we would like TwilioQuest to be a valuable part of every new developer's journey when they learn to code. And so we're not really focused on being the one amazing course, but what we want to do is offer like, oh, you've learned some skills here. Like TwilioQuest is a great place to practice that. Maybe you need to set up your computer in order to work with a particular development environment. Like TwilioQuest is a great opportunity to help you set up that way and then go on and do what you want to do. So we're not necessarily interested in like kind of controlling and building this giant educational experience empire, and more just really trying to find a good place where we can offer this value and get people learning to code.
Yeah, so I will admit I am familiar with Twilio from I think it was like a Grace Hopper a couple of years back. I went and you guys had a booth there and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool. You're building APIs that allow people to just, ease the communication flow." I don't know if anybody out there has any experience with working with stuff like WebRTC, which is like a video streaming protocol, or just even getting like a simple messaging API set up. It's a lot more complicated than you expect. So I was like, okay, this is going to gamify like these APIs and like this process to set up like your own video chat client or something. But the actual sort of, this idea of having an educational game where you go to learn to code is something that really resonates with me. I learned to code because of games. Like I remember when I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old, I went on all these like really kind of sketchy in retrospect websites on like Angel Fire or like on Yahoo about video games. And they would tell you to like, go beat the boss 20 times with X, Y, and Z, and then you'll unlock some secret character kind of stuff. And I was like, well, this clearly isn't working. Why isn't it working? And like that was my introduction to code. So it's really cool to see that that spirit sort of lives on, but maybe not as sketchy as it used to be.
we hope to be a little less sketchy than random Angel Fire downloads. It's a low bar, but
so the whole like story of TwilioQuest too is interesting because it's like a spaceship adventure and like you're programming the ship or something. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, so that's kind of the gist. We have we work with artist Carrie Lake, who's done a lot of great stuff. And one of the things she put together for us recently for the launch of like our new graphics that you see now everywhere was like this promotional, or not promotional, but like introductional is the word I'm thinking of. I don't know if that's a word. Introductory. Anyway, a video sequence at the beginning of the game to set the stage for the TwilioQuest universe. And so kind of what we have is there's this, we call everyone an operator. So like this is all of the player characters, everyone in the world can be an operator and learn how to work with computers. And the goal is to kind of defeat the power of the legacy systems. So these are sort of shadowy figures that control things from the background and don't have the best interests at heart. And so one of the kind of themes that we hope to continue integrating with TwilioQuest and kind of putting throughout the game is sort of like this spirit of cooperation and just kind of the nature of the community coming together and helping each other. So that kind of branches into some topics. Like we have some open source focused things, like trying to learn open source contributions and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the backdrop, I guess. And then the core day-to-day, the way we've kind of thought about it is the Fog Owl is kind of your ship where you explore the cloud, and then we kind of we've been saying like, oh, and then you have a Star Trek episode where you go land on this planet and land on that planet. And so the idea is kind of creating a fictional space where you can kind of have fun little narratives that are loosely sci-fi inspired.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And it's so cool that this all ties back to like the education aspect, because I think one thing that I personally always try to tell people, so part of my background when I was in undergrad was, working to get more people excited about programming. Like you don't have to be a computer scientist, you don't have to, take the data structures and algorithms course, but you can learn to code and you can sort of bring that into whatever you're doing. And I get the impression as well from TwilioQuest that that's like the end game. It's not that, you get the certification like you're saying, but it's that you're comfortable to go set up a Python environment, or you're comfortable to go, I think there was also like a JavaScript node or something that you could do.
Yeah.
And just go explore those topics on your own and bring that into whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you're spot on. You mentioned what you thought TwilioQuest would be at the beginning of this interview, and that's actually what TwilioQuest started as. It was because,
Oh,
like you were
really?
mentioning, Twilio has so many different products that it was impossible for us to staff enough experts on all these things. So we had TwilioQuest there to kind of show off a wide breadth of topics. But the thing that we kind of learned as we kept doing things is that there's a whole swath of developers that are like when you're first learning to code or you're just getting started, like you don't need to set up a web RTC connection. That's just something you'll learn later on. And so what we really kind of realized we could do with TwilioQuest in that kind of interactive experience is kind of get those first few steps in for folks on all of these various topics. So that's sorry, I'm just wrangling a cat.
Oh, no
He keeps wanting to
worries.
participate in the interview.
Well, he can make a little cameo towards the end
Oh,
if he wants, but I guess my question then, sort of following up on that, is like, when did you start working on TwilioQuest? Like, were you a part of it when it was meant to just be like the interactive documentation for Twilio's other APIs, or did you join in when it was more like, okay, maybe we can turn this into something bigger? That timing.
yeah, I joined in at that second piece. So our original lead developer Kevin he's further up in the organization now as of recently. But the original thing that he created it for was that in-person training stuff, and it was actually entirely a web application. And so when I joined was when we actually took that content and migrated it to an actual like desktop full game, so you can actually move around the avatar in space, like every other like every other game. I'm sure people are aware on this stream in particular what a what a game is. But yeah, I kind of helped with that transition because I had again, I kind of mentioned I have that JavaScript web experience and also the game experience. So I just like happened to find this job posting at the right time, and it was a great match.
And then was this your first sort of foray into actual real life career game development?
Yes, yeah, this is definitely the first actual games job that I had. I released a game in the exact same, or I was actually working on a personal game that I've since launched on Steam. That was actually I showed at the Seattle Indies Expo a couple times in the past couple years, and it
Oh,
was actually
nice.
in the exact same technological stack, which just happened to be the exact same stack that TwilioQuest was in, and that's kind of where that very coincidental, unfortunate overlap happened for me. It's allowed me to kind of transition full time into the games.
Nice. And I guess I'm curious, a lot of people who participate in these game jams are looking to maybe turn, this passion into a career. Like, do you have any advice as to how you sort of navigated that transition and sort of used your software engineering skills to kind of switch over and, be comfortable about making that jump?
Yeah. I think the first thing that I always think about anytime this comes up is that like I very privileged. I have a CS degree and I'm a white guy and in tech. So like just throwing that all out there and like, but I'm happy to talk about it. For me, the big transition happened, or the way I kind of worked towards this transition is I make games in JavaScript because that's like what I do with my day job. I'm a web developer, but I found a place where I could make games and also hone my professional skills too. There's other folks that or I guess what I mean to say is I resisted kind of the urge to learn Unity and like the traditional development tools that like would have been better probably for my experience, and I could have collaborated with a lot more people because I was able to kind of double dip in this way. And so over the past 5 or 6 years, I did a lot of game jams, participated in Global Game Jam and the local community and all that stuff, and really just tried to dip in both worlds as much as I could to overlap. And then again, who knows how often you accidentally are working in your weird niche stack and someone else opens a job opportunity for it. But it's at least nice to hear. I know when I was starting out, there was a lot of pressure and confusion about just like if you're not using Unity, you're never going to get a job if you're not a C++ expert. It should have rung a bell, I guess, when like 16 different people tell you have to know this 16 different things because like obviously there's a lot of people in there. But there's a lot of pressure when you're starting out. So I guess I can say, at least anecdotally, it's encouraging that you can get a job making weird JavaScript Electron web games too. So
Yeah, well, it's also interesting to sort of talk about that because, like you mentioned, my impression as well of the games industry right now is that there is that sort of pressure to jump to those more known tools, be comfortable working in graphics and 3D environments and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like a game is a game, as long as you can open it up and play it. And I
Yeah.
mean, websites like itch.io, for example, have the
Hmm.
ability to even play games directly in your browser, which is pretty cool. Like you can make a game with it. So, can you tell us
Definitely.
any more about how you've sort of used your weird JavaScript stack knowledge and like what types of games you were able to make with it?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's actually like you're kind of saying the running in a web browser, like especially when you're starting out, like game jams, like the number one way to get anyone to play any of your things is making it playable in a web browser. Like
Yeah.
the couple times I worked on larger teams where like we had a downloadable app and you would like look at the play count of that app versus like your free web game app from a global game jam or whatever, and it's staggering how many more people you can convince to play your projects. And so that's like the big thing for me was just like play it in a browser is number one goal, and that meant JavaScript worked out pretty well. Um, but as far as like that's the other thing that I kind of learned the more I went is it like you start out when you're doing game maker and you're like I'm going to make a web build, and then you're like, oh, I guess I can use like a JavaScript web library, and so that's I've used the tool called Phaser a lot, which is pretty popular in the web space. But then at this point in my career it's like, oh, I'm using like React, and I'm using like things normally meant for building web forms or websites, and I'm making games out of that. And so I think there's something freeing about realizing, like you're saying, right? Like when you start out, there's this impression that like a game is a Unity application where you move a character around in 3D space, and like, oh, that's not actually true. Like now there's folks doing all kinds of like ARG kind of stuff, and then games on phones. There's someone I chatted to briefly was actually using like Twilio like voice APIs to like make a first like they called it a first person talker or something, I think, where you experience like kind of a narrative like calling different numbers, and like it was an interesting experience. So there's you can do
Oh,
all
that
kinds of
sounds
stuff
so
with
cool.
games. Yeah, I need to check
Yeah,
in and see where that ended up.
I honestly I love the fact that you brought up ARGs or alternate reality games, since that form of storytelling where you really look to like build a website that tells your narrative and like you ask people to sort of it's almost like a passive experience. You're not necessarily
Hmm.
the avatar with the big guns running around shooting things. You're reading and you're maybe doing inspect elements or checking out images or whatever, and like sort of putting the story puzzle piece by puzzle piece together.
Hmm.
I personally love that. So if anybody's doing
Yeah.
anything like that for Game Jam, I will do my best to find it. But let's like
Yes.
circle back to TwilioQuest because you guys do have a diversifier for this global game jam, and I believe it's called the Quest for Knowledge, where the challenge is to weave new lessons into the rich sci-fi universe of TwilioQuest. Use our educational RPG framework and content authoring tools to teach any technical tool or concept to our growing community of developers. And I'm curious if you can kind of talk more about that, because that is a very, very broad description. I mean, I could think of many obscure technical tools I could build into this. And I'm curious, like, what the motivation was behind, sort of spinning your diversifier in this way.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the big driving force is sort of that community approach that we're hoping to keep moving TwilioQuest towards. So uh, I think around halfway through last year, we were able to kind of open source all of the content in TwilioQuest, and that includes all of the tools that we use to build the content. Sorry, to build the
You're
content
fine.
in TwilioQuest. um, and so we're really excited to see what everyone else in the community just wants to share. The topics that you can cover are so broad, like you're saying. There's any amount of information, it would be awesome. But we also are really excited for folks to like when we had some of the early access like jams that we did during that time. Like we had people that just took some of Carrie's assets and made like a really pretty park that was nice to walk around, and like someone just reskinned the player avatar into like I don't even know who the person was, but they reskinned the player avatar. It's like just this the amount of um, things you can do when you're kind of given a game that already functions, and then you kind of just we hand you all of the tools that we use to make stuff and just say, yeah, whatever you want. We just want to see anything new at all, which I know doesn't help limit stuff down, but that's hopefully where the rest of the Global Game Jam theme and diversifiers help you out.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you're just looking for to sort of continue the spirit of, developers teaching developers. And if you want to do something where you're teaching somebody maybe Node.js, or if you want to teach them how to, I'm trying to think of like another example, but my brain is stuck on Node, so we'll just go with that.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and build that in here, and then someone could maybe come along and then learn how to code through your game, which is really cool. Like, I feel like the potential there is really awesome. And I'm curious, is there anything that you personally would like to see people try and pick up and add on to the platform? If you have a short list, maybe you can inspire some people, narrow things down a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, so we focused primarily on kind of stuff like you've mentioned, like Node.js, and we've talked about like we have GitHub educational stuff and like how to make your pull requests, but kind of my are less focused right now, but my selfish desire is I'm really looking forward to whoever makes the first like make a game content. Like I think that'll just be it's a perfect content option. Like the overlap of folks that are excited to learn about code through a video game and then also would like to make a video game seems like it's got to be pretty high. So that's definitely number one on my like. I haven't quite been able to convince anyone that we're ready to do it ourselves yet, but I would really be excited to see some folks in the community teach us how to make games. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, and that allows you to get like super meta with it too, if you wanted to, and build an ARG alongside of it. And my brain is just going right now.
Perfect. That's what we want.
Do you have so if people wanted to learn more about your diversifier or how to submit like their final project when they're done jamming, where can they go to find that information?
Yeah, I shared a link with y'all beforehand, so hopefully that is in the chat that I can't see at the moment. But Twilio.com/quest is our homepage, and there's links to Discord there. And the TwilioQuest Discord is definitely the place to go. We have Global Game Jam channels and just general extension development channels because these tools aren't just here for Global Game Jam. They're open forever now, or until, I guess, TwilioQuest explodes and computers don't work or whatever. But we have no plans to turn it off, I guess, is what I'm saying. And so definitely the TwilioQuest Discord is the place to go. And then hopefully that link has some specific contest information. We have a few more prompts like that we are kind of hoping can help encourage some more direction a little bit. But again, we are open for literally every extension idea possible. We are very excited to see it.
That's awesome. So please go check that link out if you haven't already. Maybe just open it up in a different tab so you can come back here, because there is one thing we haven't talked about yet. And I am curious to hear more about what the word duality means to you, Ryan, because you may know that is the theme of this year's Global Game Jam. And it's really been really interesting to hear people's, personal takes on what does that mean? It like the TwilioQuest, it's a very broad topic with a lot of opportunity in there.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, so for me, like I'm pretty partial to puzzle game kind of things, and so my brain always jumps there. And there's that particular genre of puzzle game where like you have that kind of split avatar thing, and you like are inputting your inputs, but you have to control both player characters. And then it just leads to all sorts of wild mind-bending stuff. So that's like immediately where I go when I hear that. And then my second theming visual, I guess, for that is I think of the Upside Down from Stranger Things. So I'm kind of picturing this like light and dark world with like mirrored movements and stuff. And I'm making something way too big to finish this weekend in my head now. But that's sort of the fun of the jam. Attitude is just kind of coming up with the wild thing and then figuring out what the smallest part of that is. But yeah, that's definitely like I'm pretty partial to the kind of do the thing that you want to do, but then it has unintended consequences, and then kind of wrapping your brain around figuring out how to mitigate those things and succeed anyway. So that's my first thought.
Yeah, that's where my brain tends to go too. Like I really love those games that make you think.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Life is Strange series where, you know, this action will have consequences and there's no like clear right or wrong, but at the same time, you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's two different paths you can go down and you can kind of see the contrast and stuff. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the happy brain area when it comes to games for me.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Yeah, I'm very partial to that kind of. Oh goodness, I'm gonna invent another word on accident. I don't know the options though. I like it when games give you the choice and they're not the explicit like linear experience. I'm a big fan of just kind of wandering and figuring out what'll happen in the space.
Yeah, certainly. So, well, thank you so much for your time, Ryan. Do you have any other shout outs or anything else you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
No, that's about it. But thanks so much for having us. And yeah, if you are interested, be sure to stop by twilio.com/quest and say hi in our Discord.
Yeah, make sure to check out those links, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all are having a fantastic Global Game Jam so far. We'll be back with more fun interviews and more amazing game content soon. So take care, everybody.